Good evening, everyone. You're watching the Cheese Room podcast. Thanks for sticking with us. We're having a few technical problems this evening. H's mic's in and out. Cam couldn't hear us at all. We couldn't hear him. The wonders of modern technology. Cam, how are you? I was quoting a bit of Men at Work whilst you were struggling with your mic.
Yeah, good.
Right?
Pretty good week. Interesting week for Tottenham. But good overall. Good week.
Excellent. Well, it's always nice to have you on. I've still not decided who has the better hats, you or JP, but it's always a close call, mate.
Spurs this time, but a different Spurs.
San Antonio Spurs, no?
You bet.
There you go. And looking like he's sat in my man cave, Steve Diver, how are you, sir? I mean, I've moved inside for the winter. You've gone outside. What does that say about us?
Oh, I was going to say something about bears hibernating, but that's not. I'm good. I'm good. It's been a long week at work. It's been a tough week. Just started keto again, so I'm not drinking. I'm not eating any of the food I like. Apart from steak.
God, I haven't got to tolerate you banging on about keto 24/7 again. There's nothing more annoying than sanctimonious Diver. God, never mind. He's back.
I can think of one thing more annoying, but I won't say that.
Speaking of which, HG, how are you this evening? Vienna, okay? Part of the Wi-Fi signal.
Life is all right. Vienna's good. I've got a manic week ahead of me, but apart from that, I can't complain. It's my dad's birthday on Sunday, so Spurs will definitely lose. There you go.
A manic week ahead of you and on holiday again. Hello?
Yeah, I have a week off of my pay next week, but I still have a lot of crap going. Not looking forward to it, but it's got to happen, so let's get it on.
Speaking of not looking forward to it, but has got to happen, obviously we've got to play Man City again Sunday this week. I'll be there in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. One person who won't be joining me is Steve. Steve, how do you feel about this? You must be a bit upset to see not to see Pedro Porro's debut.
Is he actually going to play?
Well, debut on the bench.
He'll make the bench. I don't think he's going to play, but we'll come on to that. Yeah, a little bit gutted. Haven't been to Spurs since 1st of Jan. Whoever he played then. I do hate spag bowl. I do not love pineapple on pizza. That is, Paddy, that is definitely a misstatement of me there. Although there's many misstatements of me on Twitter. Looking forward to watching the game from the comfort of my sofa, not having to schlep 2 hours home after we've lost to them, to be honest.
Okay. Well, tonight we will be looking back at the transfer window, discussing the club's response to the trust's questions, which obviously everyone's really excited about and getting hyped about, and looking forward to Manchester City this weekend. First of all, best wishes to the gaffer, Antonio Conte, as he's had his gallbladder out this week. So get well soon, Antonio. HG, what chances of seeing him jumping up and down the touchline like a lunatic this Sunday after all? I've heard a little bird has told me he might actually be in the stadium.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine him being in the stadium. He'll probably have Steve's seat in the Tunnel Club. But no, I don't think he'll be jumping up and down. He'll be like every other Spurs fan, just sat in their seat waiting for something to happen, won't he? Wow. Or fighting talk to begin. But no, and Antonio Conte may well be there, but it's not a good idea for him to be there because I don't think he could watch the game and be passive. You know, I think he'll still care. So, but maybe the next one, whenever that is. Is it West Ham? It's not a good game for him either. So we'll see. But all that matters is that he gets well soon.
Absolutely. It's quite a nasty operation, Steve. Ball bladder. That's the one. Quite nasty. What do you think the recovery is on this kind of op?
Google tells me between 2 and 8 weeks. I think we've been discussing this offline, haven't we? And I think clearly he's got money himself. The club are going to invest in him. He's not, with all due respect to the NHS, he's not going on an NHS waiting list and recovery time.
Good job, to be fair.
Yeah, good job, to be fair. As much as I love the NHS to support the strikes at the moment, which is unusual for me. I think his recovery time will be at the bottom end. And let's face it, he's not doing a manual job as long as he doesn't get involved in training. So 2 to 3 weeks, I'd imagine. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the chairman's suite, director's box for the game.
That's a bit too optimistic. Spurs manager. So if it's 2 to 8 weeks, it will be 14 weeks. Isn't that how it works with any of our injuries?
Well, no, it depends if our physio team and medical team are looking after him.
I think, can I just chip in there? Didn't have gallbladder surgery, but I had a hernia around the similar region last year, in November. Given he's actually not doing any physical work in terms of playing, I reckon he would be likely up. Given my experience of I couldn't play basketball or anything to that effect, I reckon he'd be back within 3 to 4 because he's obviously not physically doing anything. It's more his movement of walking. And look, it took me a bit of time to come back as well from all the core changes I had because after the operation, your stomach's that far swollen. You've just got to take time and sit down and relax.
Shout out to Kerry King. It's probably not doing them too much of a disservice, to be perfectly honest with you. And King Hoddle is betting that me and you go private for our operation, Steve. That's unreal.
To be fair, I'm very lucky that my employer treats me well and does give me medical insurance.
Likewise, Stephen. Likewise. So there we go. Let's recap the window slightly. So Pedro Porro finally, over the line. So how are we feeling about seeing this man on the bench Sunday? HG, excited about seeing him warm up while Emerson Royal graces the field of play?
I'll get this out there straight away. I want Emerson to start, frankly, I do. So I'm not bothered about the fact that Pedro Porro might not start the game. What bothers me is that he has both his names on the back of his shirt, forcing the commentators to call him Pedro Porro every time he gets the ball. He can't just be Porro. Obviously, I won't go there. But, and 23, I know that we've had other players use that number, but I still associate it with someone who I really don't want to talk about. And I wish that we just get rid of the bloody number. I know Ericsson had it. I know Bergwijn had it. But please, Pedro Porro 23. You should be Porro 2. Done.
Trying to work out, the Ericsson song, Ericsson, son. Just trying to work out how we shoehorn Pedro. It's not going to work, is it? Not going to work. Cam, what chances of Pedro starting Sunday, do you think?
I think it's small. I don't know if he's had any training sessions yet. I assume he's had 1 or 2, but obviously we've had a change of manager over the last few days. So after the City game, I don't know if you go 3-5-2 with Porro there now, or I don't know how ready he will be. And obviously the game mechanisms Tottenham will have in place to try and counter Man City. I don't think he plays, but I'm willing to be stood corrected there.
I feel depressed already.
Any other team, we'd want him to start. But I think because it's City, and we know that we're not going to have much of the ball. It's going to be a very defensive thing. The whole point of Porro is that he's good going forward. We may not get the chance. And Emerson, to be fair, has played pretty well the last couple of games. So it would feel almost unfair, given what we all know, that he doesn't get to play the game on Sunday. I know we spent a lot of money on Pedro Porro, but it just there's no need to rush anything. So we'll keep a similar team to what we've been playing. Hopefully,
no, we haven't, HG. He's only on loan, remember? You're supposed to be very outraged about this. Can you get a bit more outraged?
Do you know what? I bought a kitchen 8 months ago, I bought it. I got some help, right? But half the kitchen was purchased 8 months ago. I don't have it yet. We have Pedro Porro right now. So we've paid for him. We've got him. The fact that, hire purchase, to use that 60s phrase, I don't care when the money goes out. We get him now. It's not like it would be one of those deals where it's like, oh, we're going to sign you in 6 months. Well, great, but that doesn't mean anything because we need you now, and we're getting him now. So there's no reason to be annoyed or concerned or outraged. Life's too short to be outraged, really.
Can I just say, could he come off the bench? Like, if is it 0-0, say at half time, could we change things up?
I mean, based on Conte's usual substitution strategy, I predict Pedro Porro will get an appearance in the 88th minute and take to the field to rapturous applause.
But Conte's not there.
I think he'll be running the show. There's these things called phones. Yeah, absolutely.
It'd be like Allardyce just at the top, because Allardyce was rarely on the touchline, was he? He was always up top, which is the best place to see the game. Yeah. You don't see anything down by the pitch. All that matters.
I am hurt.
No, but it's true. Like Steve, if you could switch your Tunnel Club seat for a boardroom seat, you would do it. You would sit next to Danny Boy at the drop of a hat, and it is the best thing in the house.
He's done it before. He'll do it again.
We don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that.
We don't talk about Nuno. No. Craig Harlow says, can you imagine the crowd reaction if Emerson Raw starts again? Steve, what are you thinking about that? You're nodding, I can see.
I mean, I can see it both ways. So the crowd, we all know it's going to be a toxic crowd on Sunday anyway. It's going to be even more toxic.
Why do we say we know it's going to be a toxic crowd on Sunday?
I mean, fair point. I think there'll be 35 people leave in 22 minutes. I don't think that's going to happen in a big way.
That's the suggestion, isn't it? Leave on 22 minutes.
It is. But we have all heard the let me out, Enic out chants, during the games. And I haven't heard them personally at a game. It's been this year. We've all heard it on the TV, or people have gone. I'm sure have heard it in first person. So I think that is going to be toxic regardless. I think if Roy does start, I think it'll be toxic against him, which I think is a bit unfair. Because he has, as HG says, he has played reasonably well. Actually, you know what? He's played well the last couple of games, particularly defensively. And City are going to come at us. So he may not be the wrong person to start.
Yeah.
But Porro will give the crowd a lift. He will give a team a lift. He will take that toxicity away. So maybe on a purely kind of more emotional basis, more crowd basis, maybe Porro is the one who should be starting.
You can't listen to the crowd, though. Can you imagine what would happen if you listened to the crowd with every decision you made? I mean, that's just... I don't know.
You could say that about life, HG. Yeah, absolutely. That's where I was going with that.
But I do enjoy the fact that we're so damn Spursy as a club. I think we're the only people to have broken Fabrizio, aren't we? Like, every time he says, here we go... Well, I guess we did sign him in the end, didn't we? But I've never seen him do a here we go, and then 6 hours later when I wake up, it's here we didn't go.
You could tell with Fabrizio, bless him, he was desperate. Once he gave it the here we go, he then spent the next 12 hours trying to desperately explain it away. He will, because he was just desperate for it to. His reputation was on the line there for a few hours.
Do you reckon he's the one who kicked in an extra 2.9 million?
I think, given how many followers he's got on Twitter, yeah, probably, yeah. Say no more about that. Cam, are you expecting there to be a bad atmosphere at this match? We haven't seen the team play at home. I'll just context. We haven't seen the team play at home for a little while, so it'd be a bit of a shame if that was the case.
Yeah, I do actually. I think the transfer window was a bit underwhelming. I think it doesn't help that down the road's doing so well. But I think it's a mixture of things. I've obviously seen and read the rumblings. I think there will be, and if it's an early goal to City, shit could go downhill pretty quickly. But potential to, yeah.
Honestly, I'm not being funny. Support the fucking team. That's what you're there to do. You've paid all that money. Like, the money has gone. If the whole point of going there is so you can make your point heard, well, don't go. That will also make your point heard. But if you're going to go, support the team. The idea that somehow we have this right to be toxic because they didn't pick the players we want them to pick. What the fuck? I'm sorry. This is mental. Why are we having this conversation? Spurs fans should go there and support the team. Done. I understand they're not playing well. I understand the football's not great. But for the first time this season, we have a fully fit squad. We can pick whatever the heck we want. And if the manager chooses to go with Emerson, then we back it. That's it. You're talking about backing Conte. Everyone's going on, Levy needs to back Conte. What? And the fans don't? Get over yourself. Go there, support the team and be done with it.
Yeah. Do you think we've got rather entitled fans, Steve? All of a sudden, we seem to be,
It's a leading question, caller.
Is it?
Do I
slightly entitled fans, Steve?
do we have entitled fans? I think every football club has entitled fans. Like, I went out for dinner. But it's true, though. I went out for dinner with one of my mates who supports Man U, and he is fuming. And half their fan base is fuming. And, like, look at the money they've spent over the years, again, on trash, like we have. So maybe there's a common theme there. Yeah, and they're having a decent season at the moment. Yeah. And their fans are still fuming because they're Manchester United and they must be winning a league, or it's a terrible season for them. So, like, it's...
I kind of understand that a little bit more at a club that actually wins stuff, though, don't you? I mean, we were less relevant in the 60s, let's be honest. 60s and 70s were our era. I mean, not so bad in the 80s, but, I mean, we're talking histrionics, aren't we?
Yes and no. So I think a lot of it is just born out of frustration. I think some of it is born out of people just not understanding how football clubs or transfers work, or just how much money, 3 million is. So when it came out that there's potentially a £3 million difference in valuation, everybody's saying just spend it. And it's like, okay, 3 million might not seem like much when you sat in your armchair talking to your mates, but when you sat trying to run a football club, £3 million is a lot of money. And if that's been earmarked to another player, another transfer, or another budget, then you're having to rewrite your forecasts. You're having to rework out where that money's coming from. So I think to answer your question, I do think a lot of Spurs fans are entitled. I think a lot of football fans are entitled.
I mean, let's be fair. Like, the ticket prices are a joke, right? Like, if I was spending that money, I understand that you want something guaranteed in return, but football doesn't work like that. Like, because Spurs pay more for their tickets than Man United, we should beat them. This is mental. The idea that how much we pay has any influence on the game. I get that it's annoying and I get that it's expensive, and especially now when people don't have much money to go around. But surely then that would make it more important to actually go there and be part of it. Like, we've all seen Spurs. On their day, there's no stadium like Spurs. When, 10 minutes before kickoff and everyone is up for it, then brilliant. Like, Spurs get that extra 10, 15, 20% they might need. But usually, let's be honest, usually people sit there and they're having a chat and they're having a beer and they're having a whatever, and then the game starts and they're waiting for something to happen. Like, to me, it's a two-way experience. Yes, the players can help the fans get going, but you'd think it works the other way too. I mean, of course it does. Like, if you didn't think that was the case, why would you boo someone? If you didn't think it was going to help them focus, or some other bollocks people come up with and they boo. I don't get it. Like, it's a two-way thing. I can cheer no matter what is going on. If the other team scores, I can support my team and tell them we're going to go on and win the game. So they, like, the idea that somehow this needs to come from them and them only, when they literally have 11 people trying to stop them doing it, I mean, it's going to be a ranting night if this is the way the conversation's going, but we just need to get over ourselves. We've got a difficult game on Sunday that, yes, we usually do quite well in, but we all know that the odds of that happening again and again and again are probably quite rare because we're not that good right now, and we need help to beat those teams. Man City aren't great either, let's be honest, but still, they will expect to go to Spurs and win. The fans will think they need to go and win to go to the title. There's pressure on them, but we still have to go and perform, and the fans can help that.
Absolutely, that's what I was saying. Get behind the team, regardless of what's going on off the pitch. The one thing you can control is your attitude when you're in the stadium.
Although,
you can be supportive or not.
Can we not talk about the price of tickets? Ours went up 15.6% this season, and we had to renew for next season yesterday.
Wow.
We're feeling that's the real reason why I'm not drinking. I can't afford booze.
Are you feeling the pinch, Steve?
I am, especially over the Beyonce tickets as well. But we'll come to that later. Luckily, Levy pays me, so I got the Beyonce tickets technically free of charge. But on the atmosphere, you're right. In some of our best games, some of our best atmospheres, being we go a goal down, and it's not the groans. Okay, it's a bit of groaning, fine, but then the entire stadium's up on its feet, singing "Come on, you Spurs," getting the team going before we've even kicked off again. Yeah, and imagine if you're Kane or any of our players and you're on pitch and you're just going to go down. They're people too. They have emotions. Their head has gone down, and suddenly you've got our South Stand screaming out, "Come on, you Spurs!" That's going to lift the entire team. We're more likely to win. And I don't know about anybody else. I go to watch us win. Like it's not. Yeah. I don't get, and I don't agree booing, whether it's the owners or the players or the manager, anybody at the football ground, just because it's just going to impact the team, and all I care about is a team winning.
Yeah, well, look, for my money, people pay their, as HG covered earlier, exorbitant season ticket prices, and for my money, they're entitled to make their voice heard when the team are really not turning up on the pitch, but it can be really counterproductive sometimes. So there we go.
Not during the game, like once you've lost.
Once you've lost, boo them. Yeah, exactly.
Right,
yeah.
But it's completely counterproductive to do it during the game. Yeah. In any of the jobs we have, if our boss came in and told us we were shit, we wouldn't necessarily want to perform for them anymore, right? And we pay their wages, so they want to play. Like the whole interaction is very much just one way for so many fans that I will never understand it. Like I've seen lots of comments about the 90s. I had a season ticket in the 90s. I went to Spurs because I bloody loved going to Spurs. Win, draw, or lose. I never expected us to win every game, and I feel that's maybe what's happened in the last, 5 to 10 years now. It's a while ago that we were doing that, but we've all seen that. We've all thought it's possible for Spurs to go and win every game and to look good doing it. But that was still the rarity. So the idea that we can just go back to that instantly without, were the fans no part of that? Is that what they're saying? That it was just the players, the team that did it themselves, and we were just there to watch? I don't want to think that. Football is about experiencing it live. I can watch it here, no problem. Right? I get a better view sitting at home watching it than I might do at the top of the South Stand. But the whole point is going with your mates and having fun, enjoying yourself. Not just sitting there moaning because the player you wanted to see play isn't playing. You just get on with it.
Agree. But then I think there's also frustrations off the field as well. So I agree, HG, completely in part where you've got to back the team. You can't be a parasite and just basically just rat them down all the time. Completely agree. But I think where do they vent? Where is it? Social media?
Mostly.
But that's where I think there's a bit of steam building up just in regards to the strategy and the direction of the club, which can be outside of the football ground. It could be a whole bunch of reasons. The strategy, where the money's going in terms of investments, the poor recruitment and scouting and development. Where do they do that, and how can we maybe get the club to shift it in a direction? I'm not justifying booing, but it's an interesting situation.
Well, let's get back to the transfer window. We're going to come on to some City predictions and that wonderful trust statement today in response to Spurs. Putting some answers back out there. I know Steve will have lots to say about that in particular. Question for you all. Was Matt Doherty, the Matt Doherty saga, I should say, the most bizarre thing to happen on transfer deadline day? How does that rank compared to the pursuit of Porro, Cam?
So I woke up thinking we're going to land Porro. Sorry, I'm going to sleep thinking we're finally going to land Porro because obviously I'm in Aussie time. Wake up the next morning, we've got him, but then we've lost another right-sided player, 2 actually. And thinking, gee, he must have really wanted to leave the club. I don't know the full context of it, but it would have been a good if the full payout was there for his contract, they're going to pay him out at least £5 million, wouldn't they? Hypothetically speaking. So it happened so quick. I was quite.
Well, I think it was mutually terminated, which tends to suggest that that wouldn't have been the case. But yeah,
it must have had a sweet deal at Atletico then. I mean, Atletico's a good.
I mean, they're a good team, aren't they? So I would imagine he's probably got a pretty similar contract to what he had at Spurs. But yeah,
I think from small game time, then I think as a player, look, let's be honest. I think he's failed us, and I think we've failed him as well for not probably having the same amount of time, and yet probably the times he doesn't really have much continuity. So if he's promised more game time in Atletico, logically, and he's a competitive professional, he'd go.
HG, what do you think about the whole Doherty saga?
I mean, it's one of those. He's not going to be first choice at Atletico either, right? So he's basically gone from third choice to second choice. I think their first choice is the guy who played for Argentina in the World Cup, Molina. So there's a good chance he won't play too much. They're out of the Cup, I think. They're out of Europe, I think. They've only got La Liga to play for. It's very odd, not just on the Doherty to Atletico Madrid level, but again, the idea of giving up 18 months for 6 months. I mean, possibly, and I saw someone on the Athletic suggest that Spurs would be saving money with the amortization of this and all that. I don't know. But the idea being that, what is he now, 31? Right? And he'll go,
31, yeah.
He'll be almost 32 next summer. Is he going to get a deal, a longer deal somewhere? I don't know. Maybe his agent has got something planned for him already and it doesn't matter. But it's just a bit odd. And I mean, I'm happy for him. I don't think he ever did really too much wrong for Spurs. He obviously was played out of position for a lot of his career and then got injured at Villa, which really didn't help for when Conte finally got him going. But it was an odd one. It was one of those ones where you thought, am I living in some kind of surreal world where why would this one ever happen? Why would Atletico Madrid be interested in Matt Doherty? Right, that in itself is weird.
Yeah.
There's got to be some, and because we've given them Reguilón as well, there's got to be some link that we get on with them, and they because it's the same with Rennes, right? We're giving a Villarreal, we're doing all this business with the same few clubs. That after a while you think, what is the reason? When do we get an Atletico Madrid player? Is that going to happen?
There you go. Jamie breaking the story. And
he's laughing himself in that picture.
Yeah. No one could quite believe it, could they? It's a slightly strange way of doing it, isn't it, Steve?
Yeah, and even that tweet by the club, to enable him to join another club. Normally you'd say which, we know which club it is, we know which club it was at the time. But why didn't the Tottenham tweet say that? The entire thing's a shambles. I mean, the only thing I can think of is there's obviously something that's happened in the background, whether one of the 8 loan players we've got out there internationally, there'd been an offer to buy and I fell short at the last minute. And there's going to be...
Not just that we can't count, no?
I mean, you hope not. You really hope this isn't a blunder.
I started where you are, which is they can't be. This is just fans making something out of nothing. It can't be. I've now convinced myself the other way that they don't actually know the rules. So can I take a quick poll around you guys? So who thinks that the club just screwed it up basically and ended up having to give him away on a free transfer? Let's go to Steve. What's your opinion first? You're with you think the club didn't realise, right?
No, I think
leave your party line.
I think there was something else going on in the background. So I don't think there's a clerical error. I think there's something else was happening that forced them. I hope.
I mean, let's be honest, none of us knew that rule. So as much as we don't work in football, it's a pretty obscure thing that they've changed relatively recently. So I can see it being feasible that we just thought, yeah, we'll loan him to you, and no one asked any questions. You know, when you think about the amount of players that Chelsea usually loan, like how are we the first one to fall foul of this? But
yeah,
I don't know.
It's so Spurs.
It is very Spursy. Like to me, the question would have been, could we not just have like navigated the rules and said, hey, you can buy him for £5 and we'll buy him back in the summer for £5. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you could do it on the back of a napkin. You know, here's the contents of my wallet. This is how much he's worth. Like, clearly we'd be getting around the rule.
I think Paratici's run into trouble before doing things on the back of a napkin.
But what Paratici did was illegal in Italy. This is not illegal. Right? Like, I mean, it's against the spirit of the rule. I understand that. But, like, if you're going to sell someone for that reason, why not? Like, why did we not think about... I mean, I don't think Doherty was going to stay longer than the summer anyway. Like, I think we wanted to try and shift him in the summer. So, yeah, it's 6 months, right? And maybe Doherty knows right now where he's going to go. I mean, that's more than possible. Yeah. But it just strikes me as being the worst possible solution. And I guess that whatever the paperwork is needed to actually sell a player, all the contracts and all the stuff and all the transferring of the money would be more difficult to set up than a simple loan, or in this case, a cancellation of contract. And maybe we just didn't have the time to do that. But it strikes me as being the worst possible solution to the problem that we knew about.
Bit back of a fag packet, isn't it, Cam?
Yeah, I side with Steve here. I don't think we've got the whole side of the story, or both sides of the story here. There's something that's gone on we're not sure of. I definitely side with Steve in this one. Because, yes, it's odd, but I don't think we've got the full context. And maybe he was just dying to leave. I don't know. But, yeah, it is odd.
I mean, senior players were said to be shocked when he left, not least...
Jealous, you mean? Jealous?
No, not least Harry Kane. Not least Harry Kane, whose brother had promised him a move on transfer deadline day.
Here are the one-liners.
Can you imagine?
They're not in the run sheet. They're off the top. Go on, sorry, Steve.
Can you imagine if a club did make a mistake on this? The poor person would wander up to Daniel's office, knock on his door and say, Mr. Levy, you've got a bit of a problem. Like, he would have gone mental, absolutely mental.
Apoplectic, yes. Yeah. Well, there we go.
Jobs that day in that case.
So, can you? The 8 people on loan are Endebele at Napoli, Lo Celso, Villarreal, Winks at Sampdoria. Oh, Harold, we don't miss you. Sergio Reguilon at Atletico. What is it with Atletico and our fullbacks, by the way? There's some sort of unhealthy obsession going on. Bryan Hill to Sevilla to learn the dark arts from Eric Lamela. Is he still employed by Sevilla? I didn't even know.
Yeah. Last time I checked, he got booked.
Does he still play?
He starts the odd game. Like, Sevilla have had a rough, I mean, when I say rough, an awful season. Like, pretty much as soon as Lamela joined, they've gone straight down. And so they're in the bottom third of La Liga, if not even lower than that. So he does start the odd game, but he's not a regular. I mean, it would make sense for them to be bad if he was a regular, but I don't think he's playing all the time.
Rodon at Rennes, another player I'd completely forgotten about. Jed Spence, also now at Rennes. I mean, between Rennes and Atletico, they're doing us some favours. There you go. And Harvey White's on loan, got on loan to Derby on deadline day. You guys excited about that? I've got a Derby friend who was asking me what Harvey White's like. Let's have a few words for my friend Harvey White, Steve.
I mean, we haven't seen much of him, have we? And I don't tend to watch the youth teams, but
That's a ringing endorsement. Yeah,
I know. I mean, what can we say? Like on the grapevine, people know who do go and watch the youth teams say he's a good talent. That's what most of the Spurs forums say. But I'm not going to pretend that I've seen him play loads because I haven't.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks for that insight. HG.
If I was to come up with a very short sentence, it would be he's like Tottenham's left-footed James Ward-Prowse. That he's good at set pieces. He's a decent midfielder. He may not be as physical as Ward-Prowse, but there are similarities there. But yeah, whether he's good enough. I mean, I think he was in League One at his last loan and didn't do amazingly well then. So it'd be interesting to see how he performs because I think the intelligence is there. But it's whether he's got the physicality needed to play at a high level will be interesting because he's 21 now. I think he'll be 22 pretty soon. So he needs to, if he's going to have a career in professional football, which he should, then playing for Derby and being a success probably means that he'll be off the Derby permanently in the summer. I would imagine. I don't think, unless the club have issues with homegrown players and club-grown players, I don't think he'll be around after the summer. But you never know.
Cam, know anything about him?
Besides what HG, I haven't watched him too much. I think he's been come off the bench maybe once or twice, but HG's description was great. But I think for any of our youth players or very young players to go to another atmosphere and actually grow, to develop, get out of the comfortable environment that they're in is a healthy thing. I thought a season or two ago, I think Tanganga should have gone to AC. I think it would have done him the world of good because I think Tottenham. I question Tottenham on their development at times, just to cultivate and really grow their young players, historically speaking. But with Harvey White, if he's going to Derby and he gets game time in a completely different surrounding, can actually mentally equip himself, it's actually going to probably reap dividends for Spurs if he can reach the heights that he wants to reach. So to me, it's a healthy thing to get out of your comfort zone. So all for
it. Yeah, I'm all for it too. I think it'd be great. I was also all for this move. Jed Spence making the move to Rennes. Yeah. That guy on the left, he's got a disturbing similarity to someone I know, which is a bit odd, but there you go. What is the squad number 90 all about? Was the question posed by Mr. John in the cheese room on Twitter. Steve, any idea what 90 is to Jed Spence? Just say yes or no. It's not
absolutely not his year of birth. He's
no. HG, yes or no?
I have no idea. I just think it's funny. It says blot at the bottom. I'm mentioning that number 90.
It's quite amusing, isn't it? Cam, any idea what 90 is to? Why 90 is special for Jed?
I have no idea, but coming from a basketball background, they choose whatever number they want. One of my favourite players, Rodman, was 91. Now, I don't know why. It was a random number. So for me, it might be that he just likes the number. It's out there, and it's not your typical 9, 10, 6, whatever. He just wants to be random.
Like in French, it's a really fun number to say. 90 in French. 90. Like, who wouldn't want to be
dramatic.
That number?
Yeah.
90.
Yeah. Well, here's the suggestion. So that'll be his rating on FIFA when he comes back. I like this one. It's how many times Conte ignored him in the car park. the minutes he hoped to play. Yeah. So there you go. Maybe those are what they are. I mean, it's a strange old world, isn't it? Number 90. You just used to be 1 to 11. We also signed this chap, Jude Soonsup Bell. Great name. It rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? From Chelsea, no less. So exciting prospect, this one, HG.
Yes. I mean, he is really highly rated. He was really highly rated at Chelsea, and there's a lot of Chelsea youth players that are leaving because they feel that their long-term prospects are better suited somewhere else. But the idea of going from Chelsea under-23s to Spurs under-23s suggests that maybe we're just paying him, and he's quite happy to have that, which is a bit harsh. But I hope he becomes something for the first team. I really thought he was going to be part of the first team setup. Otherwise, why join Spurs? But I feel like we are like, to replace Harry Kane. We've basically got every young British striker between like 22 and younger, because there's Parrott and there's Soonsup Bell and there's Scarlett and there's Lancashire now. Like, we're basically just gonna have all like the best ones we can find, and then hope one of them turns out, because otherwise there's little logic to it. I mean, I hope he does well for Spurs, but if he's not part of the first team setup in the next year or two, what is he going to do? Go on loan to Rennes? I mean, is that his future plan? I don't know.
Probably. It does seem to be the route these days. And of course, Chelsea themselves struggling tonight, 0-0 with Fulham. The things you love to see. There we go. So, HG, you've been doing a little bit of research on the homegrown quota. I've got a slide for you here. Take it away.
I can't believe this made the run sheet.
We were a bit thin on the ground, apparently.
Okay, I mean, so this is the thing, like, because the whole idea of having homegrown, and I feel like lots of fans are worried about the homegrown situation, what it's going to be for Spurs long term. Like, as you can see there, you don't need to have 8, right? Like, you can survive with 7, and to be fair, Arsenal only having 7, a couple of those are people we don't know, people we've never heard of. But if you've got players like Saka and Saliba, who both count as under 21 still, then it doesn't matter, because you've got the numbers, that you've got young players who you can play. But I did think it was interesting that most of those players, very few of them are anywhere near starting for those teams. You've got Kane, who will start every game for Spurs, but he's about the only one homegrown for Spurs that starts regularly. Chelsea and Mason Mount will play a lot, Reece James will play a lot, but I mean, they're the ones that kind of actually blood those English players or homegrown players and put them in the team. But Liverpool's involve Oxlade-Chamberlain, people that, Milner, like people that are squad fillers basically. And I just find it interesting that like the homegrown rule, which I'm not a fan of, has basically ended up producing jobs for the boys as the third choice goalkeepers, or squad fillers for everyone. The idea that it was going to enable English players to play in the Premier League, if anything, if you're at a big club, those English players aren't, or those homegrown players that are mostly English, aren't playing that much. Spurs aren't. Skipp and Tanganga, and I mean, Sessegnon's playing more than he should. So it's just an interesting thing that I personally would love to get rid of the homegrown rule. I think it's a joke. It doesn't help anyone.
It's a strange rule.
Well, I mean, like I get the logic behind it, but it's ended up. I saw someone say that all it's done is made the price for those players go up, and I agree with it. Like, if I'm Oliver Skipp and I'm 4th/5th choice right now at Spurs, because it's been him or Sarr. Like, Bissouma's ahead of him, Bentancur's ahead of him, Hojbjerg's ahead of him. For Skipp, if he could go out and play on loan somewhere and get a full season again, like he did at Norwich, then you'd see something. But he's kind of stuck in no man's land where the club won't let him go because they can't afford really not to.
But HG, isn't that at the detriment of the actual host country's league, though? Like, in the sense that if you got rid of that rule, hypothetically speaking, you would just be getting in talent. Like, you'd be an Arsenal, like the minimal amount. So,
but here's the thing, Cam. Here's the thing. I'm a bit of an expert about the homegrown rule because I play a lot of Football Manager.
Oh, hello.
And that definitely qualifies me to say it's bollocks. Because all you do is pack your squad full of youth prospects and English goalkeepers. And you can see that is literally what's happening in the Premier League. So it is true. It forces up, obviously, the premium on English players. But I don't think good English players wouldn't develop just because of that rule.
Yeah, but would there be a pathway? Would that be eradicated? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that the English quality is better or below. I'm just saying would the price still be high? I don't know. I just think that could damage pathways for the local talent.
I feel like the idea is that these English players or these homegrown. We say homegrown, but really we mean English. I mean that's the whole point of it, right? The idea was to get those players playing regularly in the Premier League, so that then the English national team would get better, right? And that, like, weirdly, the second part has happened, but not the first, right? Like the English national team has got better because there is a coach who, even though I'm not a massive fan of Southgate, has kind of realised that we are what we are, and we're going to work accordingly. If you're good enough, you will play. And I mean, we see Harry Kane, like, he went through the system, he went out on loan and was never really incredible, but he did all those things. And now he's the best striker in the league. And it just seems counterproductive that for those players that maybe have the potential to go out and become England regulars and become mainstays in the Premier League, at 21, 22, they're stuck because they can't play regularly.
Yep. Agreed. Right. I asked this question on Twitter myself. Rate the window out of 10. Steve, let's go to you first. Oh my God, I've just seen that. That's dreadful. There's 110 watching, only 29 likes. That's shocking. Hit the like button, you mean people. Mean people.
Please.
Steve, go on.
Not an easy question because I think we did okay. Clearly, we didn't get in all the players as some people would like. 7. I'd say 7.
That's okay. That's all right. Okay, let's move on from there. Cam, I'm going to you next.
5.
Do I say anything about it?
We could have got more. No, because I think we needed a centre back. I don't know too much about Danjuma or however you pronounce him. I didn't know if we directly needed him there, so I don't know too much about him per se. He came in quite quickly. I think there's other parts of the pitch that needed to have attention to it, and it didn't have that focus on it. And why Porro took for so long, I'm like, come on, guys. I would have liked at least one, maybe 2 other players coming in. So as much as I'm happy with Porro and Danjuma, I'm a bit open on how he ends up.
Cam, what did you think the biggest need for us in the window was?
Right wing back, which we've got. Central defender. Particularly hearing about Porro's defensive skills, we might need to compensate for him. Word is he's great going forward, but going down back, I've been told he's not a great defender. So, attacking mid. But yeah, I knew we couldn't get a whole gamut of players like a Chelsea, but I think we could have done more with the time we allotted. And just the Porro deal just taking the last few minutes to be announced, frustrating. So, yeah, I'm giving it a 5.
Okay. HG?
Were the players available that we wanted, that we thought were better than what we had? I mean that's the thing. Like, I just, number-wise, yeah, it's not great. We all would have liked a few more options. But I guess we are 2 players closer to a squad that Conte wants. Conte is going to trust and play Porro, you would assume. And bearing in mind that he gave up Bryan and brought Danjuma in, you'd imagine that he never rated Bryan. That was clear. He played him when it was really last resort. The fact that he did well in those games was irrelevant to Conte. He just didn't think he was good enough. So the squad has been improved. I do believe that. The squad that he will use has been improved. We've got 2 players for every position. Everyone's fit, so that actually feels like something right now. But yeah, like, what was it, a 10 out of 10? No, but I mean, we all sat here the summer when Jose signed Doherty and Reguilon and whoever it was, and we thought, we've done quite well here. We've not spent a lot of money, but we've got players for various positions. Even if it was Joe Hart and Carlos Vinicius, we were hopeful that it could do something, and right now the squad is kind of the same. We've got options for every position. We've got options for how we want to play outside of actually having proper fullbacks. So a back 3, and then what you do from then on is kind of up to us. I'm not thrilled with it, but I think we are better than what we started, and I guess that's the point, right?
What was our number one need in the window? There's a lot of different views on this. I mean, I've just seen another view there. Keeper was the number one need, which I wouldn't agree with. But HG, what's your opinion on? Dave's here. What's your opinion on what was the number one need in the window?
I was wondering if Davo's been sent by the other lot to come and say that. It's the first comment we've had, really.
Just come over from Tottenham away. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to say their name.
Voldemort.
Yeah, like right wing back, obviously, because of the way we play. The way that Conte wants us to play is that the thrust comes down the wings, and so it had to be the right wing back. But yeah, like none of us look at our centre back options and think, wow, they're all long term solutions. I mean, clearly they're not. But it is what can you do? Like if the players you think are better are not available or don't want to come, or whether it's on loan, like I understand. I mean, I saw some people on Twitter saying, "Are you trying to tell me there's no one that we could have got that was better than Davies or Dier or whatever?" Yeah, we probably could have, but if we don't want them long term, what's the point? It's pretty clear that it's almost impossible to sell players right now, right? So if you are going to bring someone in, you have to think that they're going to be there long term. And we've paid the money for Porro. I suspect we will pay the money that if Danjuma is a success, I think we'll do it. But I just, if there's anything that Spurs have shown is that you can buy lots of players for lots of money, but right now it's impossible to shift them. And the only place you can really shift them is within the Premier League, which we don't necessarily want to do. Or the players themselves don't necessarily want to leave. Would you leave Spurs to play regularly at Southampton? Like if you're Lo Celso, like you would have been a World Cup winner had you not got injured, right? You've got a great reputation in Spain. You're being paid a fortune in England. It makes sense for the players to take these loans. 6 months becomes 18 months. Like there's no team out there that are going to go out and pay the money that we might want for these players, and that's why we're struggling to sell. So. It's like the olden days of like buying someone and then within 12 months, 18 months selling them on. Right now, the way football is, that's just not the way it is.
The problem is the Premier League is the only league awash with money to sign players right now. And you buy these players, you're stuck with them to all intents and purposes, as we've seen with all our loans out.
And there's that famous statistic that's come out about having Chelsea have spent more money net spend than the other four leagues put together.
Yeah.
Right? And then you think, like, the only reason that number is for the other leagues is so low is because Chelsea have been buying their players. Yeah. I mean, it's weird that, I mean, oddly enough, it doesn't work because, Portugal and Ukraine is where their two main people came from. But it's still this idea that, like, the other leagues are kind of reliant on us. Like, we are going to be buying their players. Players want to come to the Premier League because right now, that is where the money is. And it has been that way for a long time. So these players are growing up thinking that that's the final destination. Like, a final destination is a big club somewhere. But if you look at the top 20 in revenue, 11 are in the Premier League. Yeah. If the top 30, it's something like 15, 16, if not more. Like, this is where people want to play. It's just the way it is.
It is an interesting quandary, isn't it? Because I think prior to COVID, it appeared that plenty of teams in Europe had decent amount of funds to splash on players, and now it looks like the Premier League is not just the top table. It is in a league literally of its own. Like, there's so much money in the Premier League. Even the teams at the bottom of that money league, you've got Wolves in the top 20 clubs in Europe financially. With 135 million, of which something like 60% of it is broadcasting revenue. And that's.
If you look at those big clubs around Europe, the ones that do have the money consistently, regardless of TV rights, because they're just that large.
Your Bayerns, your PSGs,
your Bayern and the Real Madrid. Like, Barcelona don't have any money, right? We know that because they're dealing with what they did regardless of COVID. But yeah, like, are Bayern going to come in and buy Spurs' players? Like, we'd love it. It would be amazing. But they can go anywhere they want, and there's no reason for them to come and sign Spurs' Deadwood. Right, they can go out and sign someone's, like, the players that they actually want to go and sign. So it just feels like people are living in this world that doesn't exist anymore. Like I would love Spurs to go out and sell Davinson Sanchez for 20-25 million. Even though he's got a year left on his deal, I think in the summer previously that would have been possible. But now teams don't have that money. You've seen what Sevilla did. They spent all that money, or they sold. No, I'm trying to think. It's basically what Dortmund and Bayern, and because Bayern will have money when they sell Bellingham, right? So they'll have some money. So Dortmund, Bayern, Real, Barcelona, and PSG. Juventus don't have any money, or who knows? And Napoli will have a lot more money, but they've also got a pretty settled side and no desire to sell anyone. So it just feels as if Spurs, sadly, are lumbered with a whole bunch of players, and if we're lucky to get,
we're not going to be the only ones, are we? I mean, Chelsea are going to be lumbered with players till I'm nearly retired.
We've pioneered things a little bit, but it's. Yeah, we see Chelsea were able to shift Jorginho to Arsenal, but for peanuts, but still they were able to get some money for him, and it made sense for them to do so because they want to renew. We just can't do it, and weirdly enough, if we don't know that Conte's going to stay around, it's not a bad idea to have a whole bunch of players for whoever comes in to then choose from. Do you know? This is it. We've got 34? I think I read 34 first team players. 9 are out on loan, and then 25 that are here. Yeah, okay, a couple of those are goalkeepers that will never see the light of day, but still, we've got a squad of players that really any manager should be able to come in and say, right, I'm gonna, if I want to play 4-3-3, I'm gonna do this, and I need these 25. Or if I want to play 3-5-2, I'll take these ones. I feel like the squad is there, the numbers are there. It's just about now, at least, finding a way of playing football that is sustainable and wins.
Be nicer to have one that's easier on the eye as well, really. Let's be honest. But it's crazy, isn't it? When the Premier, it really brought it home. Those graphics with Chelsea spending that much, more money than every other league in Europe, major league in Europe combined. It's just unbelievable. And when you look,
they can only have 3 Champions League spots.
Yeah. That's what we've got on loan, just in transfer fees, by the way. Transfer fees are a lot less than the total. You imagine what the wage is for the length of contract. Has Diver gone to sleep? Is he meditating? Or... Oh. £236 million worth of transfer fees online. There he is.
He went to sleep.
And that's with a tight chairman, apparently. It's difficult, isn't it? But it's a difficult scenario. It's lucky the Premier League is awash with money, and we're good at generating the amount of money, the amount we've wasted. Incredible amount of money.
And it's funny that, weirdly enough, the only teams that are kind of competing with Spurs for players are Premier League sides.
Yeah,
because this is it. So you're looking at someone like Guardiola, who's going to be. Lots of teams are going to want him in the summer.
Chelsea can't afford him now. Surely,
Chelsea will probably play double anyone else. But do you know what I mean? It's like we're competing against teams in our league to get these players.
Yeah,
and so it's at some point there are going to be players who realise do I want to go and earn a fortune and sit on the bench in England, or do I want to play regularly somewhere else? But that's kind of where we are anyway. But it does feel as if players see the Premier League as they have to get there for at least one contract, right? And then they're made. Like Porro wanted Spurs, and I saw a comment earlier saying that City wanted him back, but Porro was like, no, I really want to go to Spurs. But Porro, logically, one of the reasons he wants to go to Spurs is because he's going to be set for life now. Absolutely set for life.
And he knows his competition is Emerson Royale.
Yeah,
but yeah. So he's going to play until the next guy comes in. I don't know. Financially, I don't care that the Premier League is that much bigger than the other leagues. Tough luck to them, right? For whatever reason. Mostly because I think it's because of international rights more than anything else. We sell the product all around the world. Everyone wants to watch English football. And so that is great, but at some point it's going to be not about the money. It's going to be what do you do with it?
I'm just thinking about Conte's style of football being beamed around the world. Boring people.
Yeah, right.
to
That's
death in
me,
the
right?
Far
I mean,
East.
that's my life.
Yeah. Touche. Yeah. Are you all right there, Steve? Are you having a little kip? I think I caught you.
No, my Wi-Fi keeps dropping out. I had to put 50p in the meter.
Oh, yeah, right.
I know. Times are tough for everyone, Steve. So if it's that bad, we can start a GoFundMe. Okay?
I love that. I would love
You
that.
just say the word, man. We've got your back. Don't you worry.
Thank you very much.
So let's move things forward in the word of the streets. So I've got the questions and answers. Tottenham's replies to the trust here. So let's go through those. So, number one, will the club share its medium and long-term strategy for... I'm thinking Steve Dier was going to have a feed though here. Strategy for success, both on and off the pitch. How is the club measuring progress and how does it judge current outcomes against those measurements? I mean, there are some stupid statements in the question, isn't there? Let's be really honest. But the response came back...
all brilliant questions.
Say again, Steve?
They're all brilliant, well thought out, well-worded questions that you could ask any C-suite. Absolutely.
I mean, how is the club measuring progress? What a ridiculous question. But anyway, in the last 20 years, the club has qualified for European competition 17 times, 13 of which are currently successive, including 6 Champions League campaigns. We set out our business model in last year's financial results announcement. Didn't you read it, you absolute morons? Below is the relevant section. Question 1, who would like to take that? Steve, HG, Cam, one of you like to tell me what that means to you?
Okay, so I feel like the key word in that question, right? I mean, people will talk about strategy, people will talk about success, but really it's about progress. And that's the point. That's what Spurs fans are interested in. We want to see Spurs get better, and I suspect that the club want to see progress too for lots of reasons. Are you measuring it from 2001, or are you measuring it from 2011 or from 2009? Like, what is the point that you're deciding is progress? Like, if you'd said to me 20 years ago that we would be in Europe for 17 out of the next 20 years, I'd have been ecstatic because I can't remember how many it had been.
I
in the
remember when we
20
first
years.
qualified for Europe.
Yeah,
After,
it was a massive
a long
achievement.
time out. It was a massive thing.
So I understand. And 6 Champions League campaigns, like, we want to be playing the best, and we have been regularly. Was it 6 times in 12 years? That's pretty good going, considering that for most of that we were nowhere near being in the top 4 for revenue, because that's sadly that does matter, right? So I get it, but of course I don't think the question means progress from 2001. It means progress year on year, right? How have you, like, what is better than last year's 4th place finish? Are we aiming for 3rd? Are we aiming for a trophy? Like, it's like those silly questions at the start of a Football Manager season, where you have to decide with the board, like, what are your aims for the year? If the club's aims is to qualify for Europe, which it seems to be from what they've said, then okay. But is that progress from where we've been in the last decade? No, it's not progress. Progress would be regularly every year for the Champions League, and although we've done well in that area, it's I don't know. Like it's. I mean, progress is just a very subjective thing anyway.
I think this question could have been worded a bit more They could have pinned them down a little bit more, because I think they're looking at current tense, but also future tense. Because I think there's a juncture just about to occur with potentially Kane leaving and maybe 1 or 2 other players' contracts, as well as we're in a phase where we're in the stadium now. So, what are we doing to look ahead? But I think if the question was probably a bit sharper on now and ahead, and they would have probably had to reword that answer, because if you have a look at it, it's just gone with context of the last 20 years, which I agree with everything HG says. We've made Europe successfully, including 6 Champions League campaigns. But like, what are we doing going forward? We've got a manager that will say likely leave. I'm going to assume he does. Got a striker that could get sold in the summer. What's going forward? I agree, Adogi and all these other players coming in is great, but what's our success going forward?
What do you think the trust wanted to hear? I mean, that's the question, because, I mean, as the club said, you only have to look at last year's accounts to see the statement where it says this is what we're trying to do. The club have been clear about, when we were building the stadium, it was like, well, we're going to spend what we bring in. That was obvious to anyone to see. That was so. When the question was, what will building the stadium, what effect will it have on transfers, and the club were clear it won't change anything. Well, it hadn't changed anything. It didn't change anything while we were building it, but since we've built it, lots has changed. And I mean, that's in a previous. I think it's in one of the following questions that comes up. So it just, I don't think they've hidden it. I think they've clear to everyone that the decisions that have been made have been mistakes in the last 2 or 3 seasons, whether it's changing managers so often or whatever it would be. But most fans wanted shot of Pochettino when he went, because we'd been bad for 6 months. And the fans wanted shot of Mourinho because he was awful. We were terrible. And so and the Nuno thing was just, nobody wanted him. The fans were against him from day one. The club took 10 weeks to appoint him. So yes, that they have compounded each other. But again, what are you supposed to do? You just wait until Pochettino relegates you, or we have a really bad season when we finish 15th and then we go again? I don't know, but it just feels as if what exactly did the fans expect when Pochettino went? What was going to happen then? I mean, Mourinho was clearly the wrong choice, but I mean, we sat here and did a show the night that it happened, and we all thought Mourinho is the obvious choice here because he wins stuff. No one thought he would do what he did. Weirdly, not within 8-9 months of being appointed, but still, it just. I wonder with those questions, what answers the trust really expected.
Well, let's move on to the second one. The manager employed by the club has not signed a new contract and tells us that we should lower our expectations about on-field outcomes. He has publicly said the club needs to spend big money every window just to compete. How does this align with the board's philosophy for achieving success? Interestingly worded question. The answer, like everyone at the club, the head coach wants the team to compete for top honours. The club has invested heavily in the squad. There is continual progress with the aim of standing the club in good stead on the pitch for years to come. Since opening the stadium in 2019, we've spent more than £500 million, putting us in the top quartile of spending in the Premier League. We've made significant investments in the women's team too. In addition to the summer investment of over £200 million, we've committed a further £47 million this January. Steve, thoughts on that?
Yeah, we spent a lot of money. We haven't spent it very well, have we? But yeah, we spent a lot of money, and I think most people, and the problem is kind of trust aside, the Levy out, Levy in debate. You've got extremes on both sides. And you've got the extreme Levy out, as you say, the club never spend money, Levy out. That's clearly not true. These are audited financial statements, these numbers are coming from. Yeah, it's clearly untrue. We're not spending the money in the right places, which I think the club allude to in one of their other answers. So, yeah, I think it's a fair response.
Yeah,
anyone else got an opinion on it?
I think that when the questions came out, we kind of had a laugh and a joke in our little WhatsApp group about how the club would answer it. And I'm pretty certain that one of us said, that the head coach, everyone at the club, that was a phrase that even came up. Clearly, the club is going to say they're all on the same page. Obviously, they are. And the head coach wants the team to compete. Well, yeah. That's not news to anyone. It shouldn't be news to anyone. And again, it's not difficult to look up how much money the club has spent on players. It's not it's there. The idea that we're not spending, or the idea that, well, now the stadium's open, where is this money? Well, but we lost money for 2 years in a row because of COVID. So again, you may not like the fact that Enic are basically treating it as a business where we invest year on year, but we don't go crazy because we're still a business. And for 2 years we've lost money. But when we lost money, we were still buying players. We still went out and got Reguilon for 30 million, which would it's a decent fee for someone. We bought it for Bergwijn was just before COVID. But do you know what I mean? Those players have been coming in. Richarlison, it's always felt like we have been spending money that was yet to come in, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I am sure that whatever the figures are for the last season will be really, really good for the club. But the idea that the club has to point out, we've made this profit of, 9 figures or whatever it might be, 100 million, but we lost 150 over 2 years. Like, they shouldn't necessarily have to point that out, but it appears that, a lot of the fans that we have only look at the wallet when they need something and not kind of where it's coming from or how it's getting there. And I don't know, like, I don't love Enic, but you can't look, like, objectively, you look at what they've done in the last few years and they've spent money. And they've spent money on players and they've backed managers. And now we're in a situation where we've got 236 million of it playing somewhere else. So, like, you can have a go at Enic for plenty of things, but spending money just isn't one of them.
They've given the correct answer there, but there's kind of a hidden concession there that they've really pissed the money up the wall, pardon my French, but they've really just not had the right scouting and recruiting system in place to appropriate that money to what is required in the squad. So in the that's a financial answer that, but I agree with all your points. I mean, I'm not an Enic fan, but it's just that they've appropriated the money in the wrong avenues. I mean, we don't really need to go far. The Tangies, the Geos, it's been...
painful.
I didn't want to put that over your face, Cam. Sorry about this. But yeah, Dave, that is a fact. It's been that way for a long time. What are you going to tell me? Santa doesn't exist? People should know this. Like, Enic are not going to invest their own money. They did that for, the first 5-6 years, and it went nowhere. And then they reset everything and appointed Arneson and Santini and all the rest of it. They're not going to do that. The stadium was designed to get money, to raise revenue that wasn't from them. We have that. Like, have a go at ticket prices by all means. But, like, if the club, if the owners are only going to invest the money they bring in, and they're bringing more and more money in, isn't that good? Like, you can't look at things and say, like, you can have a go at the previous comment where, we bought Porro at the end of the window rather than Liverpool who bought Gakpo at the beginning. Yeah, you can have a go at that. I mean, they're two separate deals, and so they can't be done in the same way. Like, I don't know. I don't know what people want apart from just a whinge.
They want them to spend a fucking fortune and replace centre backs, I think. But which is why I asked the question about what was the biggest need in the window, because I was always of a mind that we would only sign 2 players probably in January, and I didn't think a centre back was anywhere near the top of the shopping list. And nor did Conte, if anyone actually took the time to listen to him in his press conferences. People are never happy, but there's good reason why they're not happy, because we have got some glaring deficiencies in the squad. But we digress. Let's move to question 3, and let's. Are you satisfied with recent player recruitment? I like the answer on this. Answered above, we're excited by the young talents we have at the academy. We have always ensured a clear pathway from the youth team to the first team. I mean, we're on question 3. The tone is getting more and more patronising, mate. Irked.
What? Haven't they asked the same question 3 times by this point? Like, how do you measure success? Are you happy with player recruitment? Do you know what I mean? Like, what is the manager? Does the manager agree with you? Like, what the heck? Like, I do like. It's funny, when I read this, at no point did I think it was patronising. Right, and then I saw that everyone thought it was patronising. I thought, oh yeah, okay, I can maybe see it. But again, like, are there are you satisfied? Are there any plans to improve it? So clearly they're not. So what do they expect the answer to be? No, we're not satisfied that we've wasted a lot of money. No one is. No, the idea that somehow Enic are going to be happy that we've spent a lot of money and it's gone badly. Are you satisfied? I mean, like, I understand that the trust have to ask those questions because these are the questions that people seemingly want answers to. But it does feel that, like, weirdly enough, if they just done this, if the club had said, like, this is, like, we're not happy with the way things have gone and we're going to do this without having the whole to and fro. If the club were a bit more open about how they felt about things, then fair enough. Because if they're annoyed they're having to answer it, then don't receive the questions. Don't let it go that long. Come out and say regularly. The club will say probably, well, we said it in the last set of accounts. Like, why are we having to answer it again? But clearly the club can do more. But with the performance of the youth teams, I'm not being funny. I don't think anyone who really watches Spurs cares too much about the youth teams. We would love them to all win everything, but if they don't go through to the first team, which is what we spend the money on, I don't know if it really matters if we won the FA Youth Cup in 1990, whatever it was. How many went on to play for Spurs? How many had good careers with Spurs? How many won things with Spurs? Like the games that we pay money for seemingly are more important.
There you go. This one is around in additional investment. And are we closer to securing naming rights provider? I mean, I understand why. I actually never understand why fans get a little bit irked about the fact there's no naming rights provider, if I'm being really honest. Because I don't think that money's going to go straight back in the team anyway. I think it would be more likely to pay off debt, in my opinion. But hey, Steve, you take this one.
I mean, disagree on that. The thing that constantly kills me is that this literally was, I'm not going to call people out from Twitter, but the same accounts on Twitter who moan that we don't have naming rights from Stadium also say that money will go straight to Enic. So why are they worried about it? You can't kick a club twice for the same issue. It's just absurd, and it's also wrong as well. They're not going to pay down the debt any earlier. They've got, in geeky financing circles, in the financing world, the debt arrangement the Spurs have for the stadium is world class. People genuinely talk about it. Gosh, it sounds dorky, doesn't it? But in a very positive way. So, we've got an incredibly low interest rate. We're not going to pay that down early, particularly with interest rates where they are now. That'd be absurd. So I do think the money that comes in from the naming rights will be reinvested into the club. Now, the club is wider than just the players on the pitch. It's the women's team. It's the training facilities. It's, believe it or not, Spurs during the World Cup made quite a few renovations to a stadium where bits are, mainly during the boxing being trashed. So I think, and a word of warning, I know a lot of people are going to see naming rights are going to be signed for 500 million, like we're 42.5 million we're getting from South Africa, which is a different political argument, which we're not going to have. That doesn't come in one lump. When we get naming rights, we're not going to get 500 million. We're not going to go on some kind of Coke-fueled, Chelsea-fueled spending spree in January. So I think people just need to be a bit calm. And in terms of, like the club, the trust do what they do off their own backs. So credit to them for that. But they have, and they do more than I do for the football club, so I can't say too much. But they asked for the entire board to step down. Was it a year or two ago? Which was absurd. They then asked for a meeting with the board when the board didn't step down, which you don't hold a gun to a head and then expect somebody to respond friendly to you. And this is a second round of questions, some of which, are not particularly reasonable to ask. And no commercial institution, no C-suite are ever going to answer about naming rights. They're not going to answer about additional investment or potential sales. Even if there was one, it'd be under an NDA. So,
there is one comment here from Alpesh, and I want to hang up. Like the trust have questions, the fans have questions, we have questions, right? I understand that. Like everyone wants to know a little bit more. But then you think about, well, what is the club going to say? Every piece of information the club has given out since Enic took over has been pretty vague and has allowed you to kind of think whatever you want to think. So when the club goes out and says, hey, like nothing's going to change with regards to transfers, and everyone went, oh, that's brilliant, because they didn't realise that what it meant was, nothing's going to change. Like, so
there was no budget then? There's no budget.
We're going to sell the best players we have so we can buy more. And let's be fair, that's how Spurs improved. We did that for what, 5 years until the Bale deal, really. Like that was what.
Yeah.
Like, well, maybe the Kyle Walker deal was the last time we sold someone and then used that money to make the squad better. But we went for about, 10 years between Berbatov going and Kyle Walker going, where we did that. But look, the club did improve by doing that. We did make good decisions, and we were able to. Annoyingly, we had to sell them on, right, which sucked. But it enabled the club to be where we are, where suddenly finishing lower than top 6 is a failure. When for plenty of years, finishing top 6 was incredible. The idea of even getting to... So, like, I get it. Like, everyone has questions, but Enic are what Enic are. They're not going to change that. I wish they would. I wish they would come out and be a bit more, supporter-friendly. But they're not. They don't intend on doing that. And the more you antagonize them, the less they're going to do it. So, like, no one wins in this situation at all.
Yeah, it's a strange one. I think because it's a football club and not a PLC, etc., people, you wouldn't ask the kind of questions to a business that people want to put to a football club just because of the nature of the business is football, if that makes any kind of sense.
It's the idea that, like, every football fan, every Spurs fan, but every football fan is invested in their club. Whether it's financially, whether it's time, whether it's effort. Like, it feels more than just... It's not a stock, right? You can put money on a stock and hope it goes up and down. But this is something different because it's a massive part of our lives. Enic need to realise that that's how fans see it. I'm sure they do, right? But if they don't want to have to deal with these things, then regular communication, even if you're just fobbing us off, is better than nothing. It really is. People will feel as if, like, it's like every politician.
I mean, from a club's perspective, they would say Fabio, who is after all the man responsible for on the pitch, gives a transfer window update every window and gives an end of season update, etc., etc., etc. So they would say, and I'm not defending it, but that's what they would say are the lines of communication are, and it's difficult to argue because he does do that.
No, and I agree. It's just that, like, if we were winning, no one would care, right? I mean, that's it. Like with the whole expenses scandal in politics 15 years ago, like, people have been doing it forever, but because suddenly we didn't have money, we wanted to know where our tax money was going, and then like, suddenly we're putting all this money into the club. Fans are spending a lot of time to go and do these things at times when people can't really afford to do it, and you get those kind of answers back. So even though I understand why the club did it, and it's no different than what they've done before, like, the relationship is changing because fans want something better. They want, like, a communication with Paratici once every 6 months, as logical as that is. Because, like, nothing's going to change over a 2-month period or a 3-month period. The strategy is what it is. Right now, we're making the squad younger. We're trying to invest in building the next team. The 16-17 team that we all love took years to build, right? And we were fortunate that we had brought a manager in who could take those players and build it into something. But we bought good players. We had good players, and then we had a manager who could build something. We'd like to think that Conte could do the same if he stays long term. Yeah, but if he doesn't, the next manager is going to have the same problem. If you buy good players, you can create something. But the idea that a manager is going to get, let's say 2-3 seasons to really create something in their own image before they go, Arsenal did it, but for 2 years, Arteta gone. Like, you either stick with it, like if Conte goes out and signs a 5-year deal, none of us are talking about this anymore. Right, so that's one thing that could change. But Enic can't get in control of that. Conte is. So it's like, I get we've got all these questions, but weirdly enough, I feel like Conte is the one who should be answering them rather than the club.
It's such a difficult subject because the football fans don't know how to run a business, and they don't know how to run a football club, and they don't know how to manage a team, and yet we think we're experts on everything, don't we? So, Cam, sorry, what were you going to say?
I actually agree with HG. Like, I'm running on the assumption that Conte leads, so we're resetting again. So I completely agree with the Arsenal example. As much as I hate them, They've got to admire them and respect them, because Arteta put up with a rash of shit for the first 2-3 years until he's actually reaped dividends. Now, I don't like them, but, he's actually cultivated that squad, whether you liked it or not. Like, the club has gotten behind his vision, and now he's reaping dividends. And as much as it's annoying, it's down the road. They've settled with him. They've backed him. There's a coherence there from all levels. It looks like that now they're on the upward curve. And it looks like for us, are we a project or are we actually a club? Like, I hate the term project manager for a manager, because I've been a project manager, is a temporal thing. So with Arteta, and I'm not that I'm trying to use Arsenal, but they're a good example. They've backed him. There's been cock-ups along the way, but they've got a pretty good platform now. They've got a sound young platform, Odegaard, Martinelli. I hate it, but they've kind of got behind that vision and the strategy, and it looks like they're a club that are finally somewhat united after years of AFTV trying to wide out them amongst other people.
But they're united because they're winning. And they're not winning because the fans were calling for Arteta to go.
Yeah, the fans don't
Had
chuff
Arteta
all about
gone,
it.
they'd be doing the same thing. So, I mean, I see this like...
The fans were calling for Arteta gone and Kroenke out.
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
Again, so the comment from Alpish, like, yeah, he wants ready-made, but I don't think Conte cares about how old they are. He just wants people that he will trust to play, right? Like you and I might not know enough about Danjuma to know that if he's good enough. I sat and watched all the 6 goals he scored in the Champions League in his career, right? Because it came up on UEFA, so I thought I'd watch it. There was some decent goals in there. The first one was from like 30 yards. So like, if Conte's going to play him, that's a bonus. Whether he's 25 or 22, I mean, Conte signed Barella, and Lautaro Martinez was 21, 22 when he was playing for Inter Milan. Conte just wants players he thinks are good enough. Whether they're Premier League proven or not, I think that's really what it is. And Spurs are in a situation where, sadly, there were plenty of players that we had that he didn't think were good enough to do what he wanted, or were not. I mean, like, maybe the mentality was wrong. Like, I think all of us think that Ndombele is talented enough, and Lo Celso is talented enough, right? But they've fallen out with the manager, or the manager decided, you can't do what I want, you won't do what I want, so you've got to go. And we're in a situation where we've not been able to sell them, because we've talked about this earlier. So the club is doing what they can, but it's sadly a slower process. And right now, you look at it and you say, like I think I saw a comment earlier saying that 12 of the squad have been like Paratici signings. That's half the squad pretty much. And so it's up to the manager, whoever it may be, to get a tune out of it. We did that at the end of last season and no one cared, because we won 7 out of 9 games and qualified for the Champions League. If we do that, these conversations won't be about that anymore. It'll be like, okay, how can Spurs improve? Which centre-backs are we going to sign in the summer? But you've got to win the games. If you don't win the games, we have conversations like this all the time.
But what manager will be next? Will it be a builder or someone for the now? I think that's part of our trouble. We keep going through managers with different formations, and different players are like punch drunk.
Because there isn't, and I suppose this is the bit that the trust was calling for. What's the long-term vision or strategy? But what I would have been saying is, you've had like win now managers, and you're not buying win now players.
Yes.
Do you want a project manager, next kind of thing? Because ultimately, Pochettino was a produce manager who they stumbled upon, by the way. You have to give him credit, but ultimately he was the second choice for the job. Louis van Gaal was the first choice, and look where we would have been. And that goes back to, as HG said, Daniel Levy gets all fanboy and all giddy about a name, basically, because he knows famous people. So the question is where we go really at the end of the season. You're quite right, Cam. It's interesting times, and look, I don't think we're in a terrible place. Like the amount of people having a meltdown because we're 5th in the Premier League is, quite frankly, fucking ridiculous.
But it's magnified by us.
Of course it is, but anyone with half a brain puts it into context.
Yeah, can you imagine if Spurs went out right now and got an ex-midfield player to be our manager? Someone like Tim Sherwood. I mean, we like everything that Arsenal have done. I mean, granted, obviously Arteta has a higher pedigree, but do you know what I mean? Like, if there was a Spurs player out there who had his coaching badge, Ryan Mason, like if we gave the job to Ryan Mason right now, not a single Spurs fan would be happy. We wouldn't be, right?
Agreed.
And so I just like we like Arsenal got to where they are because they copied what Spurs did under Pochettino. They bought young players and they built a team, and Arteta's done that.
They took some risks.
And of course it's a risk, but I just like it. To me, it's down to the manager more than anything else. It's down to that. If Arteta has decided this is what I'm going to do to coach them, this is how I want them to play, and now they're doing it. All of the players they bought were kind of like, really? You know, when they bought Odegaard, okay, good player, but you know he wasn't great on loan at Arsenal, and they're going to spend 40 million on him, and suddenly he turns out to be their captain and their talisman and probably one of the best players on their team. So it's not luck. But there is this kind of, it is down to the manager. Arteta has got them playing that football, right? And they've been lucky with injuries, but it's down to the manager to get that. For whatever reason, whether it's injuries or who knows this year, we've been able to get to the heights that we were at the end of last season. But there's nothing to suggest that we won't do it again. We've just got to get better.
Mm. People who are prone to over-exaggeration is what I would say. It's never as good or as bad as people think, generally, in life. And speaking of which, there's a football game this weekend. What do you think? So there we go. There's the league table currently. Man City second, 45 points. We're down there in fifth on 36. It's pretty, I mean, we've played a game more, but it's pretty amazing that we're only 3 points behind Man United and Newcastle, isn't it? Given how our season's a complete disaster.
Yes, if you think it's a disaster. Like, we've been poor. We've got good results, but we've been poor. And you want to see the performances improve. And hopefully that will with the players that we now have who are fit and raring to go. Fully fit squad for Sunday, you never know. We've second half of the season, we've got to go to Newcastle, and I think we've got to go to Liverpool. But every other big game is at home, right? Chelsea's at home, West Ham's at home. So I just, but there are so many games left. If you'd have said after 22 games, the top two are done. We don't have to play the top two anymore after Sunday. And we've got a whole bunch of winnable home games and a whole bunch of winnable away games. And it's up to us now. If the crowd get behind the team and the team start playing like we know they can, we will win a lot of games. And even though I think Man United are pretty good, they're without Eriksen. So they're suddenly quite a lot worse, I think. Like we could easily finish third this season and had a bad year. But if the team starts to gel and Conte gets more enthused and we think that something's going to happen long term, then great. But it's only going to happen over time. We can't get annoyed at losing to Man City at home. Even if it ends up being 5-1, like Poch lost to them at home. We've just got... Maybe Poch wasn't around then. But like those games have just... They happen and you stick with your team and you support them.
Yeah, you're right. When you look at the season to date, we've had Lloris, our captain, who's normally pretty damn reliable, World Cup winner, previous World Cup winner. He's I'm
trying to work out, Steve, if you're trying to troll me or not.
No, I'm not. He's lost us a couple games, right?
A couple?
2, 3, whatever. We've had Romero out, who's our best defender. We haven't had a right wing back. Well, we haven't played. We haven't played
people playing right wing back there, haven't we?
We haven't played the right wing back. We have got a club. We've now loaned him out. Bentancur's been out for quite a long time. Son hasn't been anywhere near the player we know he is.
There's been a lot of issues. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, but they've also stood with 2 in the mid, which a lot of people think we should have been playing 3. That's true.
Yeah, potentially, but I think my point is that we've had a rough beginning of the season with injuries and individual errors. Yeah, the likelihood is not all of those are going to continue. We've got 2 new players in the team.
Let's be honest. If Arsenal had the amount of injuries to key players we'd have, they wouldn't be top of the league. We have been very unfortunate with injuries. You know, you add into that Hugo dropping clanger after clanger. I'd say it's probably more than 3 games, to be honest, Steve. The unavailability of Richarlison, a £60 million signing in the summer, Kulusevski, key creator, and probably the only creative spark when Son's not playing well either, which he hasn't been, and Bentancur out, and Bissouma not being fit for purpose, or certainly in that system. And the same old problems at right wing back, no outlet down the right. Yeah, I think it's going to come together quite well next season if Conte sticks around. My worry is if he won't, because I think Udogie is a good player on the left. I think he'll be first choice. He'll quickly establish himself as first choice, and Sessegnon, much to HG's absolute delight, will be a thing of the past. I think on the right you've got Porro. I think in midfield you've got a good 3-4 CMs. You've got Kulu, you've got Richarlison, you've got Danjuma or Hill, you've got Kane, you've got so there's good players. You look at then our side, and what you say is in the summer the centre backs are the issue, probably to upgrade, and the goalkeeper. And actually, then if we get those bricks in place in the wall, then next year you can see us actually having a go at something and building something. But it's going to take Conte to stick around, because the problem is this team has been bought to Antonio Conte's requirements. And then if you get a different coach come in, you then rip up the blueprint and start again. And that's the problem. And when I talk about the vision of the club, that's where the issues are for me. We need stability. We need a manager on a 5-year contract. I know that is a novel thing, but that's what we used to do.
I mean, I feel like when Nuno took over, having played 3-5-2 for Wolves, we were all just like, well, looking at we didn't have a great defensive partnership, so we all thought, okay, like 3 at the back might work. Like even then, it was like you could bring Davies inside, you could have Reggie on as a wing back. So it gave Sessegnon a position to play, because he can't defend and he can't attack. So if you get in a position where you can do a little bit of both, then that might help him. But he didn't. He played with a back 4. And he asked the fullbacks to get forward, and they couldn't do it. And the midfield 3 was like Hojbjerg and Skipp and Winks. Do you know what I mean? Like there's it's too much of nothing there. And so if Conte decides he doesn't want to do it, and he could easily do that, right? I mean, regardless of how the squad has been built in his image, he's got his own life to lead. And if he doesn't feel well, he's not going to do it for any amount of money. And I wouldn't blame him. But whoever comes in, it would be ridiculous for Spurs to bring in someone who's made his name playing 4-3-3.
Yeah.
Right? It would be a manager that's played 3 at the back his whole career. You'd have to. Whether that's Tuchel or Potter or whoever. Do you know what I mean? It'd be a manager that plays 3 at the back. That's what you want to do. You don't go and get the next Klopp, because Klopp's always played 4. So then it becomes a case of buying based on what you have, or appointing based on what you have. But a manager that comes into Spurs should be able to say to the board, this is what I want to do with the players that you've got. And if we've got 34 players to pick from, that should be quite an easy PowerPoint presentation to make. I know what I would do. So I just, like, you can be like everything in life. You could look at Spurs and pick out every single negative aspect and think, Lloris is going to throw another one in at the weekend. Harry Kane's not going to touch the ball. Son's going to find Rosette again. Last week was a fluke. And that's that. Or you can look at it and say, we might do something. And we've got good players and you can be positive in it. I don't see any point in being negative all the time. And that doesn't make me a happy clapper. But if you gave me the choice, I would rather be positive than negative. I don't see it. Like, why would you be negative about anything? Life's too short.
Because it's psychologically easier to be negative about things than it is positive.
Really?
Our brains are built for defense, which is the actual reason why, we always look on the negative side, or a lot of people look on the negative side, because it's safer to expect to be disappointed than it is to be optimistic. But we're going into a psychology lecture here, and I'm not.
I think Spurs will lose. I'm still a Spurs fan at heart. I'm relatively negative, but it's not. It doesn't change the fact that I know it's possible. And the one time in my Spurs career did I go to a game and really thought we were going to win, just once, and that was enough. The down after that loss was enough to make me decide I can never do that again. It ruined everything about the day, and it made football a terrible experience. because I'd gone in with expectations. We lost 4-1, worst day of my Spurs supporting career, because it was the only time I did that. Since then, I believe we can. We've got to be the best we can be, but we can beat anyone. And that's okay. I don't see that as like overly optimistic. That's just basically, that's who we are. We can beat, even in the 90s when we were shite, we could go out and beat anyone on our day. It didn't happen very often, but we knew we could. Nothing's really changed apart from the percentage. The chance of actually going out and doing it has got a lot better. We can go out and beat Man City at home. We've done it repeatedly. Even Nuno managed it. So like it's not impossible, but yeah, logically looking at the two sides, the way we're playing, the way City are playing, the fact they've got more points, all the rest of it, they've got Haaland and Haaland versus Kane. Do you know what I mean? Like you know that it's going to be difficult, but yeah, I'm still a Spurs fan. I still expect us to lose because it's easier for the heart, if nothing else.
What's your prediction for this game then, Steve? We're going to win.
I want to say no, and I do think, actually, you know what? I think we are going to win. Because City haven't scored yet at our stadium, I don't think.
Really?
That's right, they haven't.
They haven't actually, no. Champions League.
They've had two penalties,
right
I think.
there. Yeah.
2 penalties and they've not scored at our ground.
It's an impenetrable fortress, HG.
Dr. Tottenham.
What's your view?
I think it's going to be a really nervy 1-0.
Okay. HG, predictions?
That I don't even want to watch. I mean, I do want to watch, and I will watch.
The Emerson Royal's going to be right back, and
yeah, like I
let us know what's in the chat.
Because Conte's not around, like really anything can happen. But I'll sit on the fence this time and be like, it'll be a creditable draw. It'll be like the 2-2 when we played Liverpool when Conte took over. I think it'll be like that.
Okay. Cam?
I think we'll lose 3-4. I think this is going to be a very open match.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is, for some reason, I can just see.
It's like because Porro's bobbing down the right instead of safe pair of hands, Emerson.
I could. Son's, City's got a tune out of Son before, so I just think City have to get the bit between their teeth if they want to challenge for the title. I just sense this is really going to be open, and yeah, sadly, in this instance, it could be 3-3, but I just got this instance. I think Haaland's going to get a brace. I'll go 3-3, but potentially 3-4.
And the answer to this, by the way, Kerry, is set Romero on him. He's past the yellow cards have been wiped off now. So full-on shithousery from Romero, I feel, is the answer to the Haaland problem. How do you solve a problem like Haaland? Get Romero to snap him.
Honestly, how do you stop Haaland? We get better at keeping the ball ourselves. That's it. Like if City have a really good goal scorer, don't let them have the ball. Yeah. Like it's like the famous NFL idea where like if you've got a high-powered offense, you run the ball as much as you can so they don't ever have it, and you just keep the ball away from them. That's what Spurs need to do. We need to that's why, weirdly enough, I always say this. I want 3 central midfielders. If Spurs can keep the ball, then we've got a much better chance of doing something. But if the ball just goes to City, it'll be like the game was 2 weeks ago. We got 2 relatively fortunate goals, but they steamrolled us because we couldn't keep the ball. We need to keep the ball.
Well, that Perisic was getting skinned down that wing as well amongst other players. So it's not just Haaland. Like they're a talented team and really showing a couple of deficiencies in that game as well. So
but they have got issues. They have got issues at the back. So obviously they've got rid of Cancelo. Stones is out.
Yep.
So, I mean, they're gettable, aren't they? Cole Walker's getting on.
I think the biggest thing for Spurs is that, I mean, we talked about it after the City game, is that whenever Mahrez had the ball, it was Perisic that was defending him. I don't want Perisic there.
And it needs to
I
be
want
Perisic.
Davies out there to do that.
Yeah,
but equally as important to me is the winger providing cover. And the match at the Etihad to me was won and lost because Son was appalling going offensively and offered absolutely nothing defensively. And if you go back and look at the goals and look at Son's position for all of them, he wasn't helping Perisic one iota, as he never does. Let's be fair. I'd much rather see. I agree with you on Davis, by the way. But I think then you put Perisic or Richarlison up on the left, which is my fear. We won't do it because Sono's got a good record against City, just coming back into form, yada, yada, yada. But there's got to be more defensive work on that left flank.
Yeah, and it's about just, I don't know, like understanding the
situation. I think Son has scored every home game.
Sorry, Steve?
Oh, sorry, cut out then. I think Son scored against City in every home game.
Okay.
So you got to play him. Sure.
Yeah, his record's spectacular.
No, you haven't, because you play your players that are in form here and now, and you pick your team to win the game. And the team may have been at a different place last season to where it is now, and that's
like if I would go 3-5-2, and so if Richarlison was fully fit, I'd have him starting over Son. I really would, because I think he's just like again with 5 subs. You can decide, right, Richie, off you go for an hour. Just be an arsehole. Be your
shithouse, max shithousery.
And then when they're knackered, because you've kept the ball and he's running the channels and he's making life difficult as best he can, then you can bring on Son and say, right, now you run at these tired legs. Like, it's very basic. I understand it's quite basic, but we've got a squad to do it. The question is what you do with as the 3 in midfield, and how do you fit Kulusevski in, or do you fit Kulusevski in? But to me, that's it. Kane is going to start, and who's going to play with him? Is it going to be Son, or is it going to be Richarlison? I don't think Danjuma will play, but that's what I would do. The 3-4-3 will just get overrun in midfield. And I don't want to see that, because City will do that easily.
That's the problem, isn't it? That's the problem. So Son has scored 4 games in a row versus City at home. Well, there you go. Clearly, that means he's going to score some on Sunday, then, doesn't it? Look, gents. Oh, by the way, I'm going to add my prediction to it. I'm going to say 2-1 home win. We're going to, and the lane is going to be absolutely rocking. But I'm going to be rocking if I don't get to bed in a minute. It's nearly 11 o'clock. You've all been absolutely a pleasure to deal with. Cam, thanks for joining all the way from the land down under.
Good to be on. Great. Cheers.
HG, always a pleasure, never a chore.
Renting over. Hopefully the next time on the show, I'll have a brand new living room. We're having a renovation next week. So I want that to go really well as I want Spurs to win. But come on, Spurs. Do it. It's my dad's birthday, 75 on Sunday. You've got to get it, just for him.
There you go. By the way, Mod Drummer, I am not going to Leicester. It's clashes with work this time round. A Tuesday night would have been perfect for me to leave early. Blue Moon or Blue Moron? Bye bye, Stevie.
It's a bit harsh. I mean, playing Blue Moon is not the worst thing in the world, is it?
Oh, just annoying. Stevie, thanks as ever for joining me from my man cave. By the looks.
Thank you. Thank you for loading me your man cave.
That's all right. Any time at all. If you're there on Sunday and I see you, grab me, and I absolutely won't buy you a drink. And in the meantime, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. Go in for gold.
Come on,
beat the City.
Steve, show us how you do it in the corporate section. Come on, you Spurs.
What accent was that?
Vamos, the Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.